to keep to who they are when you do what? Trade places with them. Reconstruction, revisionist history. Just break that down. Think about that. We're going to reconstruct and revision your history. So after the Civil War, after the Emancipation Proclamation, and then Kennedy gets bodied, so they change the paperwork, they reconstruct the story, right, as to what really happened, and then they give you the story of you coming from Africa as a slave, every single person of color that was in the Americas, even though your grandmama told you that you always been here, you ain't no goddamn you ain't no African, you was an Indian.
Yep.
And she pleaded and begged with you to keep knowing that because of your ties to the land, because if you had hundreds of acres, you wasn't selling no drugs, and you wasn't twerking back then to get all that. You understand? You had it. You know what I mean? You weren't robbing nobody for the land. How was it yours? How could you have all of this land and you were sharecropping?
Okay.
Who was sharecropping? Who was working the land and got pissed off at you because they wanted the land? Who went to war with you, took the land, switched the paperwork, said you was the slave, cut your ties off across the ocean. No, threw you across the ocean, cut your goddamn ties off over here. Go all up in your caves, bring all of your natural stones and all of that stuff, sell it to you. Go in the ground, pull the gold up, sell it to you. Extract the water, sell it to you. Trap energy, sell it to you. It's yours. Wherever you go, think about regentrification. White people show up in depressed areas. White people show up, Europeans, pilgrims show up in areas that are depressed, distressed, and already falling or failing. They put a bagel shop in that bitch. You know what I'm talking about? They start painting things, they sweep up the block, they regentrify it. You're thinking that they're bringing some new life to you. You're thinking that they're breathing in a new life, but what happens? You get pushed out. What happens? You get priced out. What happens? You get stressed out. You get basically evicted from your habitat. Your culture starts getting erased. Niggas start drinking German beers and all kind of stuff. You know, things change.
Yeah.
So reverse that to when we go amongst them, what do? You can't make us turn our lights off. You understand? As a people, as Africans, as Aboriginals, as Americans, whenever we come amongst our people, we bring our culture. What is culture? Culture is everything that we do. The way that we teach, the way that we walk, the way that we talk, the seasoning that we put in our food, the way that we wear jewelry, the way that we wear clothes. So we influence the Europeans just by showing up.
Yeah.
Just by pulling up. They was like, well, goddamn. They crawling and shit. You know, chasing dogs. You know what I'm saying? They're like, well, goddamn it. The brothers not allowing us to, the brothers are coming amongst us. They cleaning us up, stand up. You know what I'm saying? Washing our women. Telling us to comb our hair. What you see taking place is a pushback to what was done. Because they say that we put them in chains. We put their women in chains. The same way that they had our women on sex farms, they say that we had them in brothels in Europe. Concubines. You know what I'm talking about? We were selling their women in Europe, in Spain. So when you see Trump, when you see alt-right, when you see all of the things, the Confederates, the flag, the white boys running around telling you, nah, everything is all right, you good. And you know that they finna plot. And they working on something. Then you understand what's behind what's going on. That's the backwards. The reason why you get no results, the reason why nothing is working out for our people that are deciding to protest is because you're doing this shit wrong. You are surrendering. You're coming up with every colorful way to surrender. Hands up, don't shoot. That doesn't appear to me like you're talking about doing anything. No justice, no peace. Okay, we won't give you any justice and you'll never live in peace. Dying. Am I next? You're asking somebody a question. I cannot breathe. You're affirming that you cannot do the most important. Why you can't say I cannot eat or something? You're affirming that you can't breathe. If you don't have breath for 5 minutes, your ass is dead. So people running around the world saying I cannot breathe. That's an oxymoron. Why are you mimicking the man's last dying words on a goddamn t-shirt? Exactly. Is that supposed to make somebody feel bad for you? Are you supposed to be coming through, you know what I'm saying, appearing like you about your business in the year 2017? No. Nobody's falling for that. They're not impressed. They're like, these Negroes are backwards. Who is coming up with these slogans? Who is coming up with all of this shit? What is it dying? Oh, we just want to show the world that we out here dying. Bro, they knew that already. They're out there dying. Do you see white people having die-ins? They're leading in mortality rate right now. You didn't even know that. Facts. They are leading in mortality. They're dying faster than anybody on the planet. Are they having die-ins? Are they saying, am I next? But they're having the marchers saying blood and soil and what? You will not what? Replace us. Everything that man just got up here and showed you about the Moorish issue. Meaning that you are the rightful owners of everything on this land that you stand on. And if you were to find that out, it would be disastrous globally. The whole shit will fall apart. So a lot of this stuff that you're seeing has a direct result to do with that. All of the police killings, that's pushback. Do you know what was going on with them in the early 2000s with the Moors? Do you know what was happening? How they were being washed up and challenged in their courtrooms? Do you know the amount of paperwork that was going into it? Do you know these crackers in the South lost their minds when they was reading? Oh my goodness. These Negroes are waking up. When you go into the chat rooms of these white supremacist groups, that's what they're talking about. I promise you, go and check it out. I'll show you some stuff on this presentation where they're showing you, look, we've been watching what you guys have been doing the whole time. And this is called blowback. We're reacting because we can't allow the majority of your people in order to wake up, because it will be disastrous. Fear of a Blackamoor Messiah. Fear of a Blackamoor Messiah, meaning a messianic force, not one man. It's the force. It's hashtag woke. That's why everybody is Black Lives Matter. Exactly. They have infiltrated your whole goddamn consciousness and your movement, gave it a label. No, got nothing to do with what you came here to do. Threw black on you again, right? And then labeled everybody that. Then they're like, yeah, they're terrorists. You know what I'm saying? Because the police got shot at their rally, so they're the terrorists. They're part of an anti-government group. You know what I mean? Changing the narrative because we don't control the media. So they spinning all of the stories, giving it new narratives, new names, and then you out there looking crazy. Next slide. So, when they say make America great again, when we try to figure out, you know, what took place in our great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers' days, where this group called the KKK and these Europeans were making America great. When America was great, what was going on, right? So this is something they don't want you to see, because when they talk about terrorism and we got to put on the stars and stripes and go around the world and spread democracy and make people peaceful and whatnot, because that's what we are, this shit will contradict all of that stupidness that they be talking about. All the lies that they tell our people, trying to paint us like we're savages, right? When they've been carrying out massacres against our people, okay? We out here having die-ins, right? We doing hands up, don't shoot, I can't breathe. But when you see what they used to do to get their justice, you would understand who you're dealing with, okay? They never follow what they're telling you to follow. You in the Martin Luther King era, allowing them to hit you with bricks and spit on you and whatnot. they would go in the courtroom, drag you out, and hang your ass. You understand? A mob of 20 right in front of the pole, bare face, mask off, and hit you right up, boom, boom. And the police would be like, oh, I can't do anything. Purge. What do you think Donald Trump is speeding his base? What do you think he's trying to destabilize everything to protect you? Like as you see in Puerto Rico, if they wanted to wipe the whole island out, they would have been able to do that. No power, no telephones, cut off from the world for 9 days, no planes could get in there, no ships could come in. They could have went in there and knocked all of them off, or their opponents, or whoever they want to take out. They're showing you, this is how we're going to do things. And they're conditioning the world and the American people to be used to shit like that. That's insanity. How could you have an island right off of America and you don't get to them in 9 days? In 9 days, and this is America with an $800 trillion military budget? You got drones killing people all around. We in America, they got niggas getting killed by drones right now in Somalia. Flying them from like Texas and whatnot. You can't fly drones over Puerto Rico and assess the damage the minute the storm leaves? Really, bro? And we falling for that?
They got floating cities.
Huh? They got floating cities.
Aircraft hangars.
Next. So these articles go on for days. They could open up a whole museum, a left and a right wing with all of these articles. This is a purge. This is the purge. Mm-hmm. The movie The Purge, it speaks to their subconsciousness. You understand? Horror movies, massacre movies, shoot 'em ups. It programs, it's a trigger. It speaks to their subconscious nature. The sports, black men on the field, NFL, going at each other, boxing, all of UFC, wrestling, all of that speaks to that nature. And then they're programming your babies to be savages. And then you try to out-savage the goddamn savage. But you can't do that. You'll find out in war you can't do that.
Hell, even using the term savage.
Georgian, yes. Georgians, soap, man, and gas, burn them alive. Alleged slayer tortured by mob for 12 hours. Charred remains hang from gum tree. Mob lynches Negroes seized in hospital. Mob storms South Carolina jail, put 2 men and women to death. So don't ever let them tell you how to carry out your justice. They're like, yo, they shiver in their boots when they think about the shit that you would find out that they did to you and that you may do to them.
Yep.
They're calling you animals. Oh, those are animals. They're interrupting our lunch. Bring back the death penalty against these protesters. How savage can they be? I'm trying to eat Chipotle. They're having a dying and shit. But here it is. They burning you alive.
Right.
Having barbecues. Yep. Dragging you out of hospitals and precincts. Sam Jose burned at the stake and his body cut to pieces. Okay? Next. So, when you see the programming taking place in front of you, right? You have to pay attention to the psychosis that's taking place in the programming of these sociopathic Europeans, how they're bringing them back into their savage ways and preparing them for the purge. This one showed you it all this year. The one that came out during the election. They gave you the Trump archetype. They gave you the Hillary archetype. They was working together to cook niggas. They brought in people from around the world to cook you during this purge. Like how you see Trump flying around the world to Poland, having a speech at Warsaw, talking to the Germans, talking to all of these right-wing Russians, all of these white nationalists, white ring, Nazi-like governments. These are not governments for black people. These are all governments they're called right-wing regimes. They got xenophobia going on. They're beating up immigrants, chasing Moors out, capitulating Moors, because that's what they're talking about. All of the countries on the ban list are Moorish provinces. Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Cairo, no, not Cairo, Iraq, where the caliphate and all of them are coming out of.
Right.
You gotta understand what's going on. This is an ongoing crusades. This is an ongoing conflict. This is an ongoing battle. I'm not trying to scare you. I just want to give you the pieces of this, so you can't even play the game if you don't even know what the pieces are.
Exactly.
You talking about racism and all of this dumb shit. Now, listen, it's deeper than that. It's a lot deeper than that. It ain't just no simple, he don't like me, so I'm gonna be mad cool with Becky and Bob. Invite them over to watch the game together. You feel me? We're gonna pray together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
When the anthem comes on,
when the anthem comes on, we're gonna, and then we're gonna dab right after that. Like, no, it's not that simple, okay? And I'm not trying to break up any friendships out here. I'm just saying, we got to deal with what's going on. We got to talk about it, because they damn sure talking about it next. The death rates are rising for white male adults. Death rates rise for wide swath of white adult study finds. Are they talking about this? Have you heard this on the nightly news? Huh? Next, let's talk about what's going on with white people, because they so focused on us.
But it's in the Wall Street Journal. Exactly.
It's in I have multiple articles. I'm like, let me just put this shit up, because in the era of fake news, you need your sources. Yeah. So this is in their business paper. This is big business. Just the thing. That's why the health care, the Trump care, the Obamacare is so important to them. It don't got nothing to do with you. They're the ones leading the the negative birth rates and the deaths. Their health care is very important, and they're looking at each other. The owners, the plantation owners who feed on their people the same way they did it in Europe with the monarchy and everything. They still do it today. White is not a goddamn race like Pop. What's my new Popovich told you the other day? Who saw the clip?
Yeah.
Who saw the clip?
Oh, yeah.
With Popovich.
Yeah.
Popovich was like, yo, this white is not a race. It's not real. We all came together to go against you. Remember, Civil War. After the Civil War, Irish, Italian, all of them, they said, oh shit, the whites, right? The Whigamores. The Whigamores. They said, guess what would be a great idea? What if we all call ourselves white? Niggas was like, what? That makes sense. Because we put all of them under the black category, now they're a standing army. If they ever chose to come together, we made all of them black. So why don't we make all of us white and we give you guys some privileges? The Irish, you get to be the police and the firemen. Correct. The Italians, you know what I'm saying? You get to handle the pizza shops. In 2015, two Princeton University economists published a landmark paper showing that mortality was rising for white middle-aged Americans after decades of decline, a startling development for an economically advanced nation. Now, a new analysis from the same pair, released Thursday by the Brookings Institution, paints an even bleaker picture for the nation's largest population group. Mortality has been rising since the turn of this century for an even broader swath of white adults, starting at age 25. Driven by troubles in a hard-hit working class, death rates for white non-Hispanics with high school education or less now exceed those of blacks overall. Well, god damn it. Did the ancestors not predict some shit like this? Did Elijah Muhammad not say in the fall of America that the European were going to be dying more than the blacks? How the hell could you be going to Afghanistan Iraq, Syria, anywhere trying to bring civilization and your shit dying. What do you have to bring? McDonald's? Huh? What the hell? White casket? Murder burger? They're not even living. And they're 30% higher for whites aged 50 to 54 than for blacks over all of that age. So you'd be like, damn, why would they want to kill us? Red pill? What are you talking about? Becky's love me. I'm a magical Negro. They rub on my head, in my belly. I'm very gay. Why would they poison our food? They have everything. Why would they hate on us? They have white picket fences. Shit's going good for white people. They have inherited the world. They're the chosen ones because my white Christ has to have a people that he comes from, and in the book it says that they're chosen. That don't look like chosen to me. So when you worry about why they're paying so much attention to our despair, painting us, we got us with I can't breathe shirts and all of this other shit, giving us consecutive news cycles and loops about our black death, why they not talking about theirs? Do you know the power of attention? Do you know the power? I think North Korea knows some shit that we don't know. Kim Jong is like, nigga, please, cut it out. This is an act of desperation. Y'all mad at people whose life expectancy is rising. That's what it's appearing as. Because they're not dying in Africa like that. They're actually living longer. But they sending our army and navies over there. They droning them. They're disrupting the society. They're throwing IMF on them. They're GMOing the food. They're vaccinating them. Bill Gates running around the world poking niggas. You begin to understand the psychosis of the maniac that you're dealing with. When they said that the time is up, they meant that. Alright? That's why the race is on for AI and transhumanism and the genome and the Higgs boson, looking for the God particles so they can extend their motherfucking welcome here. Next. Though their findings reveal more recent troubles for blacks, you niggas are not off the hook. Okay? Because I'm not trying to compare the two. We dying and looking crazy as much as they are. Because if you attach yourself to a dying people, if you're locked into a ship that's sinking, well, goddamn it, guess what? If you in Rome doing as the Romans do, well, shit, you going down with Rome. And for the people that are doing that, look at them. Scan them one time, put on your day-live glasses and check them out. They looking like zombies out there. Walking dead. Because they want to be like the white boys. All of my people that are eating right, sleeping right, thinking right, speaking right, they looking good. Look at us. We looking young, healthy, happy. I'm not talking about our people who have decided to be responsible for themselves. I'm talking about our people who are irresponsible, just waiting for them to tell them how to live, what to eat, where to go, what to drink, shit like that. Or the ones who they've contracted, the paid off people amongst ourselves who have been contracted to their multi-billion-dollar corporate organizations, and then they tell them what to say or what not to say. Them niggas. You know, the music industry and whatnot. Yeah. This doesn't seem to be about current income. Ain't about the bread. Health as well. It seems to be about accumulating despair. What's the despair about? What's the fragility about? I told you before, it's white inferiority, white fragility. It's not white superiority. Don't ever say that again. Superior people do not conduct themselves in the ways that you see the natural oppressor conduct themselves on a global scale. That's not superior behavior. They have not established superiority for you to be calling it what it is. It's not that. It's white inferiority, white fragility. All right? The rising mortality of working class white adults appears to be rooted both in worse job opportunities, the Mexicans taking a cotton picking jobs and whatnot, worse job opportunities, and increasing social dysfunction following generations of relatively stable lives that involve job advancement and expectation of living better than one's parents, the researchers said. Wages aren't rising with age now as much as they once did for high school educated white men, suggesting that the composition of jobs available to them has changed and that there is less upward mobility. So when Trump says, make America great again, kick the competition out, these niggas are like, let's go. Lock the blacks up, you know what I'm saying? Put them under pressure, they like, yeah! Because I don't like sitting at the stoplight when these niggas, Barquisha and Raheem pulling up with rims. That's making them uncomfortable. They're feeling like they're losing the grip on America.
Playing that loud music. But
playing that loud music, that mumble rap. And when they kid and when their children want to emulate us, and they're losing them to the culture. Despair. Black president, despair. I'm serious. You see what we going through with Trump. Imagine how they was going through that shit with Obama, because they was feeding them all of the conspiracy theories. He's a Muslim, meaning he's a Moor, right?
wow.
He's going to tell them who they are. He's going to leak the secrets.
And he did.
He's not following the oath, so they was on his ass. He tried to slip some shit through, and they put the sword over his head.
Yep.
And probably sent a picture with the Malaya, the babies and all of them, like, listen, try us. We will rock you. But the way that they was talking greasy to him does not compare. You think they talking greasy to Trump? They was on the White House lawn burning effigies. Remember, they had a whole march on 9/10. I forgot the year it was. But they covered that up. They had a goddamn secessionist march on D.C. Millions of them. The same alt-righters that we're dealing with now.
When they was called the Tea Party.
When they was called the Tea Party. Right? They were talking that secession talk then. But you're dealing with the Walking Dead. You gotta understand who these people are, the desperation behind them, and the lengths that they're willing to take, and why they're building up what they call the final war. Next. You know what I'm saying? Why do you think Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, respectively, are the two most watched shows around the world? The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones. It speaks of their stories in both of them.
They already Walking Dead out here.
The White Walkers. You know what I'm saying? The zombies. Either you the zombie or they the zombie. It depends on perception. You know what I'm saying? But they like, yo, it's gonna come a day where we're just gonna be walking through headshot niggas. And it already started. For many Americans, America is starting to fall as a country or fail. Says James Smith, who wasn't involved in the paper. He struck the mortality rates are rising for young working class adults. The bad things that are going on in America do not appear to be going on in Western European countries. That's a big deal. The phenomenon is occurring all across the country, both in urban and rural. The ills are so deep and complex that it would take many years and many changes in policy. Move next. Here's a chart. So 1999, it was at one place. 2015, it's going up. Amongst the elderly, up. Black is falling. Right? The mortality rate is falling. I'm in New York. I don't know how busy these niggas get out here. But where I'm from, our people are not dying wholesale like that. They're dying more through health-related issues. But they're not murdering people left and right in New York. You know what I'm saying? I know down south is starting to pick up and all of that with the gun violence. We're going to cover that. You know what I mean? But overall, I'm not seeing what I saw in the 90s. Like the genocide was in full swing, real hard. But If you watch the news, you would never know about any of this. They're keeping this stuff private for a reason. They're exchanging information amongst themselves for a reason. And they're putting Black Death in your face all over your time, on your scroll, on CNN, all on the 24-hour cycle of the loop for a reason. And then they're creating talking points that we're proving is a false narrative. Because if you talk about us, talk about you, nigga. Let's do it, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's try to figure out why you dying. What the hell is going on with you? Let's investigate that one. Next. So, around the world is falling, but in here is rising. Look at that. Look at that. Okay? Blacks have long had a much higher death rate than whites, but that rate has dropped steeply since the beginning of this century, while the rate for whites has crept up. Driving the uptick are increases in deaths of despair from drugs, alcohol-related liver diseases, and suicide. Next. As well as a slowdown in progress against death in middle age from heart disease and cancer, the nation's biggest killers. The pair examined more than 15 data sets, including government, health statistics, death certificates, and various economic indicators. I'm putting the word out now for the researchers in our community to go and find out, go and cross-reference this. Because I don't ever want anybody to say, oh, they might just be putting out propaganda in order to throw off the fact that niggas are dying, and they are not dying like that. They just did it to throw you off. Nah, get out of here. Stop that. They dying, goddammit. I can feel it. They're moving amongst you too. To do what? Is that going to help prevent the dying? Are they going to feed off of this energy that black people have? Because when they come into the neighborhood, it seems as if they are parasiting something. You can see it on the people. They start looking worn and drawn. Like, you know what I mean? They start looking a little more stressed out because regentrification brings about stress. If the inclusion of a group of people raises my rent and you haven't explained to me why, that shit is going to induce stress. I got my whole budget put together. I'm used to paying $1,500. If Becky and them makes my shit $2,200, why? What the hell did they do? Just coming in the neighborhood? They still slinging dope on the corner. You know what I'm saying? Why did my rent go up? You can't even, you know what I'm saying? You can't afford the bills now. You can't afford certain kind of vacations that you used to take. You can't afford the extra things because they're raising up the cost of living all around you. And then you have a hostile people who they decided they want to talk to you or not. I don't know about y'all, but in Harlem, they walk right past as if we're not even out there. You're like, God damn it. They won't support the vendors, so they're not coming in with economics to support the already businesses that exist. They're starving them out, pushing them out in order to bring in their businesses. So, you know, you gotta ask these questions. The opioid epidemic has only heightened a trend that was already underway before the drugs hit the market. The analysis paints a portrait of a gradual collapse of the white, high school educated working class after its heyday in the early 70s. How about that?
Who you see in Charlottesville?
Who was in Charlottesville? Who said you will not replace me, blood and soil, and had that look like shit going down? Like, what's going on? Talk to me. They was looking real paranoid and nervous. By contrast, Ms. Case and Mr. Deaton noted the mortality rate has continued to decline this century for whites with a college degree, albeit more slowly than before. Oh, is that right? Next. Next. Who likes Trump? uneducated white men are the president's biggest supporters.
He even said that.
President Donald Trump's biggest supporting bloc in the country since winning the presidency last year are the same people who voted him into the Oval Office, white Americans. Meanwhile, minority demographics trailed in their approval ratings of the president. Next. These are his standing army. These are the people whose mortality rates are up. These are the ones who don't have anything to live for.
These are the big walkers.
These are the white walkers. Okay? These are the white walkers. Right? Above all, it was uneducated white men, usually above the age of 50, who were most likely to support Trump in his first 7 weeks in Washington, D.C. Next. Next. It's just showing that he's followed by more conspiracy theorists than any other president. DEA warns that fentanyl epidemic is a crisis of historic proportions, as it is revealed that 44 people die a day from opioid abuse, and the number went up. This is an article from 2016. This is all over Middle America.
Wilmington is the opiate.
All right. When I went to Kentucky, Louisville, they had pre-gentrified into the hood as dope fiends. They brought dope clinics all in the black neighborhoods and brought all of these dark age. Remember, what are we going back to? The dark ages. I'm trying to tell you that life is centrifugal. It goes in cycles. So like Eileen was showing you earlier about the Moorish history of the Moors in America, we focus on the Moors in Spain, the Moors in Europe. You know what I mean? And you're seeing a repeat of things that were taking place back then. They went into Afghanistan and brought that dope back, and that shit has cursed them. How about that? Because we're talking about plants. Right. Plants have spirits in them. Same way that they smoke crack. Crack comes from the coca leaf. You know what I'm saying? In the jungles of South America. It was very ritualistic. They said that Pablo Escobar and them used to do mass rituals in the jungle with blood rituals, cutting heads off. Remember, they were known as they were known as the satanic cult. They was known as the Invisibles. I don't know the Spanish word for it, but when you watch the documentary, they talk about Pablo Escobar and them used to disappear or will. So imagine the rituals that they did, all of that cocaine, that it wasn't detected, that it was invisible. These are Latin people in the jungle. What the fuck? That's where they do the magic at. Palo Mayombe means sticks. In the bush. In the bush. The bushman. The bush doctor. So the bush people, they're in the bush doing the magic. And it comes out, the drugs have a part to do with it, the narcotics. I'll show you that in a little while. Go, next. Next. Something happened in Russia from 65 to 2005. So what they're experiencing in America right now, or in this region where these Europeans are, it happened in Russia. They went through their own version of that. Okay? And then Putin came in and reversed that. Next. Henceforth, there's a lot of Russian infatuation.
Right.
Next. Same thing. They went through the same thing. A rise in their mortality rate, deaths of despair, vodka, poverty. You know what I mean? No jobs. You know, all of that stuff that they were going through. Cold War. Next. Yeah, let's breeze through that. Let's breeze. Next. Next. is a lot.
What is it? Something like 50
Something like 50 million Americans are overweight, and many eat food that is not good for them that will make them die. That is not suicide. I think drug overdoses tend to be in the same category. Humphrey says the problem is that heroin users start out feeling like their life is a 5 rating, and heroin makes them feel like 25. Over time, the addiction makes them feel like they are a -5, and the heroin gets them up to 5. The addiction becomes less enjoyable and negative and not very appealing, but I don't think the overdoses for the most part are suicides. To the extent that people are feeling shitty and doing what they can do to self-medicate through drugs is doing it in a very dangerous way. I agree that it is not an accident that many overdoses happen. Whether they are intentionally suicide, I don't know. So, next. So when we see what certain groups of people are going through, why are we giving them our attention? Do you know your intention is giving them life? Do you know that your tears, all of the die-ins that you're having, all of the hands up, all of that surrender and kneeling shit, is giving these people life? They're like, thank you, my niggas, you're giving me life. Your tears are delicious. Because we're going through our thing right there, but through psyops, we're going to put you under fear. We're going to put you in a fear factor. You know what I mean? We're going to put your men in a broken place of despair. Broken trees and financial illusions, the secret depression of black men. This is a conversation nobody wants to have. That the mental health of our black men and women and children are deteriorating by the day. Huh? Our Moorish men and women, Moabites. The things that we're beginning to see on social media, all of the programming that they're doing on TV or through the news. Every damn night you're seeing some kind of ratchetness going on, and murders and robberies, kidnappings, all of these things. The fact that there's a gender war, low-key, taking place between a black man and a black woman. All of these things are adding on to this despair. Coming outside and seeing all kind of situations around you. What does it do to your psyche? You know what I mean? Mad murders and whatnot and no convictions. What does it do to your psyche? Trump. Huh. Next. The realities of the labor market cannot be ignored. Black men have almost been rendered as obsolete in some areas of employment. Many of the traditional factory jobs that black men once occupied have disappeared due to a myriad of factors, including globalization, automation, and competition from immigrant groups. A significant number of people have taken to self-medicating themselves with drugs and alcohol to cope with their frustrations and disappointment, you don't say. As a people who don't produce anything, you're never going to get any results. Me and my brother, we come and lecture in towns that used to be factory towns. Meaning that the brothers and the sisters in the town were able to produce. It's all about food, clothing, and shelter first and foremost. If you're not producing anything, then you're not reproducing. If you're not in production, you can't be productive. If you cannot build your own or plant your own food, you just an indentured servant at this point in the game. You see it with Puerto Rico. You see it with the disasters that have taken place. If you can't feed yourself, you are subservient. You're a vassal of the state. We have to get back into production. That is going to be one of the things that's going to cure us from our depths of despair, from our depression. Black men have to produce again. We got to put our hands on some shit and create. You understand? There's empty factories out here. Take those factories over. If they have clothing apparatus, there's states that are rich in cotton and whatnot. We all wear underwear. We all wear t-shirts. We all wear socks.
Hold on. Y'all been to Walmart lately? I'm saying, you know what underclothes cost? They want $20 for a pack of t-shirts.
Free shirts in there.
That shit is an industry.
Haynes can't be getting all that money.
We have to get things like silk screen machines, vinyl cutting machines, heat presses, and begin to create our own industries. Okay? We have to pick up cameras and become our own media. We have to tell our own stories. The software, the technology is in everybody's hands. Tablets, laptops, 4K cameras, drones, everything is available to the average person. You have to control your own industries. Women, it was shown when you study towns where they have factories like Detroit, Baltimore, where they were producing cars, they had auto markets and whatnot. Remember, there was a boom in births, meaning that when we were in charge of production, then our reproduction jumped. But in places where black men can't produce, abortions are at an all-time high. They're not reproducing you because the black woman is like, that nigga can't bring no security to the game. He can't promise me that he could feed these children. He can't plant the food in order for them to eat. Production. We have to take back, we shouldn't be asking about going to get a job anymore. We should get around each other and figure out how to create a job. There's been enough information that proliferated the internet over the last 10 years to where anybody knows how to create an LLC at this point. That should not be difficult.
DIY sites on YouTube.
Do-it-yourself sites on YouTube teaching you how to do anything. We have to begin to pick up more trades. Who's going to rebuild the Caribbean? We qualify. Look at all the Caribbean people in America that got trades and resources. They could be rebuilding all of these places right now to be our getaway islands or places that we could call our sovereign lands. I didn't even know Barbuda existed. Did you? I'm like, damn, they hit Bermuda so hard they changed the name. The framing of the heroin and opiate crisis as a medical issue is drastically different from the crack epidemic that was characterized by criminality. It is also problematic that the Trump administration, through the directives of Attorney General Jeff Sessions, wants to pump the gas on locking more people up for longer periods of time for drug offenses. Did you know about that? We're going to talk about that. Next. I got to fly. How much time we got left?
We can take a break. You want to take a break now?
Do y'all want to break or let me know?
You have.
Show of hands how many people want to break or how many people want me to keep on going. Break? Show of hands. Okay. Next. In some cases, right? Go back. Women have been openly disrespectful towards a man who is unable to fulfill core financial needs. That is undoubtedly a contributor to high divorce rates. A lack of financial stability can furthermore cause single men to not even want to engage in the dating process. The dating scene often involves the man having to pick up the tab for expensive meals and entertainment activities. So what's the solution that many women are talking about? They're saying, yo, F it all, we're going to just swirl. Because white men don't go Dutch. Pick up the tab. That's the conversation. That's the reason behind our women stepping out and going with other men. They're like, because, you know, niggas that want to go Dutch or they like eating at Arby's and everything. And, you know, I find that disrespectful because the Atlanta housewives, before they have a fight, they're always in the bar. And in Love and Hip Hop, when they're throwing drinks on each other, they're at bistros and whatnot. I want black, you know, and men can't afford that, so I'm going to go with a white guy on Tinder because they'll pay the bill. That's low-key prostitution. You're selling yourself for a meal. You're selling yourself for a bill to be paid. You're selling yourself, you know what I'm saying, for a fake status update. It doesn't make sense. But what we talked about earlier about black men being productive so we could be able to do these things and not have our women turn, you know what I mean, throw us under the bus or stun on us because you're not producing anything. White people, if we go through that whole phase for another 100 years of waiting for a European to pull up in the parking lot and put us on the back of his pickup, you know what I mean? We're going to be in a very bad situation. We have to take it back to what Durham used to be. We got to take it back to what Tulsa used to be. We got to take it back to what all of the pictures that I've seen, we look cleaner than any of the cleanest niggas I know these days. How was we so clean in the 20s? We were sharp. Not only were we dressed sharp, the look of confidence in those elders' faces or those ancestors' faces told you that they was about their BI. They weren't worried about nothing. They didn't look like they was, you know what I'm saying? I looked at some of the faces of our ancestors who was dependent on Europeans to feed them and clothe them. And then I looked on the faces of those who were self-efficient, who depended on each other. It's a stark difference, family. You don't see the despair on their face. You don't see the stress. You don't see that cloud of negativity on them. They were shining. We got to go back to that. We can do that. Like I said, cryptocurrency. Do you know, case in point, Houston, they had the flood. Everything got messed up. You have now 500,000 African Americans, Aboriginal, indigenous brothers and sisters in Houston, Texas, and surrounding counties who now can come together and say, you know what we're going to do? We ain't waiting for FEMA. We're just going to do a susu. Do you know what a susu is? Put money in the pot on a weekly basis. We have an initiative called the Facts Initiative. We have a formula that we came up with called the 30,000 formula. 30,000 of us putting in $20, investing, not putting in, not donating, not letting me hold something, investing $20 on a weekly basis. 30,000 business owners, that makes $600,000 of a workable budget that you now could disseminate amongst your different businesses. Then if you do that for 2 weeks, that's 1.2 million. You feel what I'm saying? It grows. It begins. We have to have patience. We have to realize that the times that we spent wasting time can never be made up. The only time that matters is the present. It is the now. You can't be counting ahead of the. No, focus on now and just do. Everything that you've done has not worked for you. So the level of insanity that we're dealing with, the mental health crisis that our people are going through, is because we keep trying to do some shit that never worked. That's why we looking crazy. Niggas are still marching. Really. We shall overcome. No remixes. Nothing new under the sun. No new approach on how to do this thing. Oh, we're gonna boycott Walmart. Drive me to Kmart. Next. Target. And all of these things are because, like the brother Alim shared, they have a purpose in keeping you in despair, keeping you asleep, keeping you distracted, keeping you in fear, keeping you sick at the doctor, keeping you worried. There's certain things that if you had a healthy mind, you start doing some healthy things, then that would disrupt the lie. That would disrupt the matrix. That would disrupt the illusion. That would disrupt this grand theft that is taking place of our land, our resources, our riches, and everything that belongs to us. Our sanity, our inalienable rights. Next. The Bow Wow Challenge that took over social media earlier in the month was a reflection of a daily pattern of illusions for me. How dare you try to shit on Bow Wow? When that's all we doing. It's some Bow Wow shit. Y'all about to get on the G5. Knowing that you about to clean the G5, nigga took all his work after that lunch and about to get on the G5. So I'm like, no, you're lying. You was cleaning the G5. You changing the tire on the G5. But Remember, we live in a holographic universe where all is mental and you create your reality. I come from the land of fake it till you make it, New York. These niggas talk shit into existence. Now, dead ass. They'll talk it into existence and they'll act a role until that shit comes alive.
Biggie Smalls.
You understand? Yeah. So I understand how to program reality through both the word and your actions and things of that nature, the camera, all of these things. The pen, it's mightier, you know. But we got to understand we're living in a fantasy world. People don't want to face this reality. Niggas have created all kind of fantasy worlds around them. When we listen to rap music, we're in a fantasy world. When we walk around acting like that song we just heard, we in a fantasy world. The majority of the time that we spend walking around, we're walking around in fantasy. They have industries that they built off of fantasy. Disney, Marvel, Xbox, PlayStation, Facebook, Instagram, BT, VH1. Reality shows are fantasy. We don't want to deal with the despair of the reality, so niggas smoke L's to go into fantasy. They sniff coke to go into fantasy. They pop pills to go into fantasy. Alter reality. All realities. Well, we are kings. We are queens. We are pharaohs. You understand? We are reincarnated, indigenous, aboriginal, leaders of the world and shit. The ancestors have returned. You understand what I'm saying? You would run from a mouse. They got people, you gotta have bread to go see the mouse, man. Right. Like, there ain't no regular trip. Right. You going with at least a few racks to go and see the mouse.
Bring that cheese to the mouse.
To bring the cheese to the mouse. Huh? That's the power of the Western world.
That bread ain't gluten free.
That's the power of this spellcaster, this European. He knows he created an industry off of fantasy. I would say, well, shit, we need to get into fantasy as well. Sophia Stewart, Octavia Butler, some of the Afrofuturists, they played their part. And the African folklore and all of these stories, the Kemetic ancestors, yeah, they play their part as well in that world. But you got to understand that that world is to be controlled by you. Don't be controlled by that world, because you'll lose grip of self. You know what I mean? So our people they're living in this fantasy that they don't control, so they don't have a control over themselves, so they're easily programmed. Yo, we're gonna make it Molly Percocet now. Do this, you know what I mean? Let's push that. You feel me? And that they'll get programmed into that. They start running around asking for Molly Percocet. Because they're not in control of that fantasy. They're being controlled. For all of the trips, fancy purses, and Jordan brand shoes, the truth is that the vast majority of us are barely scraping by. Credit, celebrities, and trinkets have given many of us the illusion that we are doing much better economically than we actually are. We have been bamboozled by Facebook likes, hoodwinked by Instagram comments, and led astray by Twitter retweets. Social media has a tendency to tell you a lot of things that aren't true. It's the Matrix. It's a stronger version of the Matrix. It's the upgrade of the Matrix. You feel me? Next. Next. The average net worth of a single black woman with a bachelor's degree is 11 racks. And the median wealth of a single black woman without a bachelor's degree is $0.
Repeat that.
The average net worth of a single black woman with a bachelor's degree is negative $11,000. Is that a negative?
Looks like it, yeah.
That's negative.
That's a negative 11,000 because you're in debt. Right? You might have paid off a portion of that debt, but it's still negative 11 racks. And the median wealth of a single black woman without a bachelor's degree is $0. According to a research brief entitled Women, Race, and Wealth by Kangzu Jungpa Bakanati, this underscores the sad reality that getting a college degree may actually be a hindrance in some cases to a person's wealth position because of the frequent need to go into large amounts of debt in order to obtain higher education. So they're like, yo, even with an education, your shit messed up. Even without one, your shit messed up. Who want to go speed dating after this? We got to get our sisters. No, I'm dead ass. There needs to be a combining of households. That independent woman shit don't work according to the numbers. According to the numbers. It's not working. So what are our sisters to do in this economy in order to reverse that trend? I say become entrepreneurs. You know? And learn off the internet. You know, buy into those courses if need be. But we live in a whole different day and time. This is called the age of the entrepreneur. Ain't no more 8 years of college and shit. You're just going to work for the person who created some shit when he was 8. Multi-million-dollar company, you know what I'm saying? And we're just going to be working for him, you know, or her. This is about studying self, your culture, your niche markets, creating a product, prototyping it, going overseas, you know, going overseas to get the product done at a reasonable price, or being able to manufacture that product with you and your team on a local level. Like I said, there's a website called businessesforsale.com. They're selling factories. They're selling them all around America. Factories with the machinery already in there. If we could create toilet paper, if we could create tank tops, if we could create underwear, socks.
What's that website again?
Businessesforsale.com. All right? They're selling all kind of stuff on that site. You can sell your business on it. So we have to become our own business leaders. I'm walking around the neighborhood, I see small businesses. I'm like, yo, the only thing that's stopping them from thriving is us. We got to support each other. That's the only, we cannot look at anybody else because like I said, they're not going to look at you because they got their own issues. They're going through their own shit. We got to focus on us. So when we say, yo, we don't got time to focus on you. We got to work on us right now. Black people got their nose in everybody's business. Black people worried about what everybody else doing, but they're not worried about themselves. Thinking that this shit is just going to work itself out. And it's not. It will work better if we work together for the better. That's where the solution is in the people. The only suffering we going through is because we're not utilizing each other and our resources and our labor and our intellectual property to work for each other. That's the only reason. There's nothing else in our way. Most of the racial wealth gaps that exist are a result of the lack of intergenerational wealth transfers available for black families based on a host of different reasons, ranging from federal housing administration policies, slavery, Jim Crow laws, employment discrimination, denial of access to capital, and the list goes on. How do you cure that? Crowdfunding. Just crowdfunding. Meaning that if there's 1,000 of us and one of us has a product, one of us has an idea, there's businesses, they need a food truck. We come together, we say, what is it all going to be to put it together? 10,000, and then we crowdfund. And we could get into something called equity crowdfunding, where you can offer shares of your company So you could buy into shares of a company. The same thing that Garvey did. He was selling shares, stocks of his company on the penny, and that's how he became a multimillionaire in his business affairs. Network marketing. You know what I mean? Like, I know people is an MCA and all of these other things, but what if you had your own network marketing companies or plans? This is how you're going to be able to build up wealth, or this is how you're going to be able to build up any kind of intergenerational wealth. You're going to have to own. You're going to have to produce. You cannot have, there's no intergenerational wealth by working for a company. The 401k does not have intergenerational wealth attached to it. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble. That comes with businesses. That comes with land. So that land that Nana left you, those 20, 30, 40, 50 acres, that's intergenerational wealth that people are selling off for 20,000, 30,000. That's what's happening. Next. This says how America kills black men without lifting a finger. Experts say stress levels amongst black men are related to social conditions. Next. So, black men are dying just from watching themselves die on social media. Black men are dying just from watching black men begging for change and something to eat. Black men are dying just by going on Black Twitter and seeing some of the things that are being said about them. Black men without beards are dying just by going on Beard Gang's Facebook group. Want to die? Can't grow, ladies.
Got it. Give me a sheet of paper to make it a big in the chair.
That's a way to do it. That's the way to do it. They got it.
Yeah. They got it. This.
Hold on. This thing ain't plugged in?
Went out. That's good.
There's substantial evidence to demonstrate the environment we live in has direct impacts on our health. DNA responds to environment. Okay? DNA responds to environment. So if we're living in neighborhoods that need to be swept up, if we're living in neighborhoods where the garbage needs to be picked up, why are we allowing white people from Nebraska and Wisconsin to come in and do that? And then we call the shit regentrified and allow our rent to get doubled and get pushed out. We could have painted the walls, just drive through a regentrified neighborhood and take the template. Get some pastel colors from Home Depot, paint bright colors and shit on your buildings, mop up, sweep up the block, mow the lawn, and regentrify your own shit. Anywhere where churches exist, the surrounding radius of the churches should be pristine. They all should be regentrified. Wherever there's a mega church, within a mile of that church going in all directions, that shit should be cleaned up. How is it that you come together on Sunday with all of the people who are unemployed, all of the drug addicts, and you passing out brooms? And you could go into the collection plate and yo, just go and clean up everything around here. Here's some bread. Go get high, nigga. Why? How is it? How they not having raffles? How they not having versions of Shark Tank? Yo, bring in anybody in the church. This is a mega church. Like I said, 30,000 people at $20 is $600,000. You should pray on some shit to happen when we all gotta come together. Because the power is in the numbers. Once you get a group of people together and convince them that their numbers, or 20 people at 30,000 is 600,000. So we got all of the celebrities running around that they're woke now. They want to help out and shit. They're out there regurgitating bars, right? Well, talk. So why don't 30 of y'all come together and pledge 20,000 to help regentrify our neighborhood? That's 600,000. Then you could disseminate that amongst the people in the neighborhood, so we could clean up our neighborhoods, clean up some of these dilapidated houses and whatnot. Open up these houses as daycare centers. Do you know what incubators are? Do you know what incubators are? Do you know what accelerators are? Do you know what startup communities are? Show of hands, how many people know what a startup community is? See? Please go and research startup community, incubators, and accelerators. Accelerators and incubators. Who saw the TV show Silicon Valley on HBO? Okay, nobody. So that's the show about four techies, right? They have an app that they're developing, and it won one of the prizes at what they call as a hackathon. Meaning that a whole bunch of programmers come together and they have like a 24-hour programming event where the best person, the best programmer, the best actor, you know what I mean? The best whatever wins the prize. So accelerators are houses that they're buying in low-income neighborhoods, outfitting it with Wi-Fi, and then you have different kind of app developers and coders coming in the house to come up with all of these apps that you have on your phone. They'll have a lawyer there, or they'll have an expert there who could basically walk them through certain things and whatnot, but you'll have a designer, you'll have a coder, and you'll have a program living in a house, and they call that an incubator. An accelerator is when they now have round 1 and round 2 seed money, meaning that when you go online and you see, oh, this company got round 1 seeding of like 10 million, 15 million. So the accelerators are preparing them to get seed money. Once they get the seed money, now they're in an accelerator, meaning that they're ready to go public. Once they go public, they sell shares, they get those billions or those millions, they become a household name or something on the stock market. Boom. That's how they're kicking out companies all around America. You could have your own startup communities. You could develop apps. How many ideas we got about apps in our heads? There's a book called, there's an app for that. Go and get that book. There's an app for that. Showing you that this is a burgeoning, this is a technological boom taking place. That market, you should be in that market. Online mobile games, billions of dollars. Online apps, billions of dollars. All of these things. Matter of fact, we have an app in the App Store. Know the Ledge. Please go and get it. It's free. You can download it either in the iTunes stores or the Google store. It has 700 episodes of our radio show, music of ours, websites for the clothing and everything, PDFs with books, a cyber library. You know what I mean? And we're doing more on it to where you could live stream and do all kind of stuff off of the app. So we have to become more industrious. This lecture today is not about necessarily the things, but we have that lecture called the Facts Initiative. You know what I mean? That's 3 hours of all of the things that we need to be doing to come together and do some industry, be industrious, be productive amongst ourselves, all of the different niches and all of the different, because I know everybody in this room right now has a talent or a skill. That's the new economy. The age of the entrepreneur means that people are tapping into their talents and their skills, and that's how they're employing themselves. That's how they're getting rich. They're not being a grand artist working at Whataburger. I'm talking about my specialties is fries. You've been doing that shit for 10 years. You're the fry maestro. But you was really a classic Beethoven artist, but you didn't know how to monetize that. Well, now we live in a day and age, in an era where all of that is thrown out of the window. You could become a billionaire off of your talents. You become a millionaire off of your skills. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to identify with being employed by anybody, because if that's all you identify with, what happens when you get fired? You've been running around all your goddamn life saying that you's a doctor, and then you get the pink slip, and you're not a doctor. What you be telling people? I'm a used to be a doctor. I'm a soon to be doctor. Like, you know, don't identify yourself with your profession. When you do that, you sometimes take away from who you are. You have a purpose. You were sent here with a gift. Everybody has one. Everybody's been blessed with one. Some have been blessed with multiple ones. You know what I mean? Some people have so many gifts that, what do they say? Master of jack of all trades, master of none. But that's what we have to begin to, motivate each other, begin to refine our skills, get into these groups or get into these programs or become part of memberships where we're refining these skills. We got to become part of our own incubators and accelerators. Put the children in that. The children are more susceptible to learn about technology nowadays than the adults are. You got to teach them that from right now. You understand? If they playing a video game, they can make a video game. That's what's going on. They can learn how to make a video game online. All you got to do is Google how to make a video game for free. I promise you. How to make a video game for kids. So if you want to homeschool the child or if you want to teach them after school, you can now be teaching them how to program an app, how to create a video game, how to create a business, a lemonade business. You know what I'm saying? A food truck or whatever. I don't know. A food show on YouTube. There's so many things. We got to be more productive. Next. All right. We're going to get into some of the things that Jeff Sessions have been doing. I don't know if you're aware of this, but this is the reincarnated J. Edgar Hoover. He is not playing. He's here to create 4 years of living hell for people of color. Please believe it. The best thing that can happen for our people is if that nigga fell asleep at the wheel of an 18-wheeler on the cliff of Mount Kilimanjaro going the opposite direction. Right? Because he's bad news. Next. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is wasting no time making changes at the U.S. Department of Justice while simultaneously making sure there will be enough prisons to hold all of the prisoners of the United States' future. On Thursday, he announced plans to rescind an Obama-era directive to scale back the use of private prisons. Remember, Obama stopped that. Sessions came right in and brought that back in. Next, and he's promising them that he's going to fill their beds. Trump's latest executive orders to fight crime includes new task force overseen by Jeff Sessions. Next, he created a new task force, basically, just to lock niggas up. This is the executive order, the task force on crime reduction and public safety. It's very archaic when you read it. Go and research it. Next. He has another one, enforcing federal law with respect to transnational criminal organizations and preventing international trafficking. Executive order preventing the violence against federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement. So if you resist arrest under that executive order, that's a federal offense now. Yo, officer, why are you arresting me? Oh, he's resisting arrest. Put a new charge on him. Remember, they're lining these things up, distracting you with other things, cooking, right? Cooking all of the media stuff, creating a narrative, false narratives, creating all of this psyops, putting our people into a position where they're going to push us off that cliff, force you to jump. But through all of the distraction, what Donald Trump is tweeting, his team have laid out all of the track work that's needed to reinstitute a new form of slavery. The executive orders are consistent with the goals of the Fraternal Order of Police, which endorsed Trump in the election. The FOP issued the Trump administration the first 100 days a list of recommended actions the president should take. For example, the FOP has urged Trump to reserve the ban on racial profiling by federal agencies. Reverse the ban on racial profiling by federal agencies, meaning they want the feds to racially profile you. repeal Obamacare, restore the use of private prisons by federal government, enact hardline anti-immigration measures, and scrap the recommendations made by President Obama's task force on prison sentence reduction. Did he not fulfill all of those already? Did he not give them what they wanted? Next. So he's saying they're going after the drug dealers. I wish the rise we're seeing in crime in America today was some kind of aberration or blip, Sessions said. This is a dangerous permanent trend that places the health and safety of the American people at risk. Next. So, all right, the cop union wants Trump to bring back racial profiling. The FOP, the nation's largest police union, is hoping to get some payback for endorsing Trump. They want the dismantling of some of President Obama's 2015 reforms, including his call to increase the rise of body cameras nationwide and create a national database on police use of force, the cutoff of some of all federal aid to sanctuary cities, and the lifting of the 2003 federal ban on racial profiling. So, when they pass racial profiling, right, in this newly heated up environment where they're criminalizing the football players. Remember, they're demonizing niggas with helmets. So the fraternal order of the police say, yo, we want to criminalize all of them. So now you're seeing Trump work through the NFL with the owners, his buddies, to criminalize the black athlete now. Because they flipped the whole thing that Kaepernick was doing, and now it's about criminalizing niggas who get millions of dollars who can't stand for the flag and they're ungrateful. As a matter of fact, you know what? They got brain concussions. Niggas are crazy. Because they came out with the CTE report that what? 90% of the NFL players have brain damage. So like I said before, they don't want to talk about, they don't want an NFL player with a consciousness, they want them with a concussion. They don't want a Kaepernick, not thinking, like, damn, you're supposed to have CTE. They didn't hit you enough? Trying to wake up. They want the ones that are brain damaged. Aaron Hernandez types that flip out and kill their wives, the Ray Caruths. You feel what I'm saying? They're not going to live long anyway, you know? So they'll just be programming them. Right? So go next. So they're going to get that. They're going to get racial profiling. As Trump attacks civil rights protesters, Attorney General Sessions takes his own anti-civil rights campaign to radio. He got on the radio. This was right after the NFL thing, and Sessions went in. Let me read what he said. As President Donald Trump's attack on football players protesting police brutality continue to grip the news cycle, Attorney General Jeff Sessions has taken to conservative talk radio to advocate for policing tactics that would exasperate the very problem. Luther Strange campaign, Trump attacked NFL players for kneeling during the national anthem in protest of racial injustice, specifically police brutality, saying, "Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners when somebody disrespects our flag to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now. He's fired." Apprentice. Trump continued his crusade against the predominantly African-American protesters with a number of tweets throughout the weekend defending his comments. Appearing on a September 27th edition of the Laura Ingraham Show, Sessions claimed that we've gotten away from principles of law enforcement that work, alluding to the shift away from law enforcement policies spearheaded in the 1980s and the 1990s when, according to the U.S. News and World Report, blacks were 5 times more likely to be arrested for drugs than whites were. Sessions continued. You've got to effectively stop and have sufficient punishment to deter people from committing crime, presumably referring to his May 10th memo outlining a plan to increase mandatory minimums and beef up drug sentencing. So he put out a memo to all federal judges to say you have to seek the mandatory maximum of all drug sentences, no more minimums. It's mandatory. I don't care about none of that. I don't care if he got letters from the football coach or whatnot. Mandatory maximums for all drug offenses through the feds. So all of the brothers that were about to come home, they retroactively locked them back up and cut that, because Obama was about to let brothers home. They were locked up for, because this is the Carolinas. Half of your population is locked up with 80 and 60 and 50 and 40 years for crack rock. On September 26th edition of Sean Hannity, Sessions proposed police departments reinstitute the law enforcement strategy of former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. I don't know if you know this, but that man came and destroyed New York City. A Republican who became notorious for proliferating stop and frisk policies that unconstitutionally targeted minorities. That's just a smidgen of what he did. That's Giuliani. That's 9/11. That's the mayor who was, you know what I'm saying? He was there when the towers got knocked down and didn't say anything.
Told niggas go shot.
Told niggas go and shot. He's the one with Amadou Diallo who got shot 51 times and all kind. I mean, Giuliani is a piece of work. Locked up the mafia, you know, did a lot of things, but he turned it into a police state. He was in bed with the corporations. He's in bed with big government. He's in bed with Trump. All right? So Sessions is saying we need to make this nationwide, Giuliani's policies. Next. That's just an increase in police murders and all kind of other stuff. Kidnappings. So they passed Blue Lives Matter. Under the Trump administration, the slogan Blue Lives Matter is a matter of official policy. So Black Lives Matter, as much as they beat that up, they went and made official policy out of Blue Lives Matter. And blue is just a color that you wear at work. It's not even a nationality, it's not a race. Blue Lives Matter is just a color of a uniform. So Yellow Lives Matter for niggas with raincoats on? Like, I don't know. What are we doing here? The term has been used by white law enforcement and their supporters, reflecting a white reactionary response to Black Lives Matter and the protest movement against police violence. Now the mantra takes on a new meaning under a new law and order White House. One of Trump's executive orders increases penalties for people who commit or attempt to commit crimes of violence against federal, state, and tribal and local law enforcement orders. Next. Okay? Blue Lives Matter. But what they don't talk about is all of the police that die at the hands of their own people. Okay? This was 1 week where 12 police officers have been shot and killed over the past month. And all of these were white people that killed them, or Europeans, or pilgrims. 9 white cops killed in 11 days by white men. Where was the media coverage? Now, do you think if 9 white cops got killed in 11 days by 9 niggas, we would be in a state of war right now? There would be brothers on the fruit trees hanging with, you know, apologetic Negroes saying, I said I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Next.
Yeah, and even prior to that, the white supremacists in particular, they was killing them wholesale. Like in the last year during the election cycle.
Facts.
But the minute that Steve Bannon and Jeff Sessions got into the White House, they declassified all white supremacist groups as, you know, domestic terrorists.
Yeah, they classified them as domestic terrorists. The media continues to show us their agenda. We saw an astronomical number of black men killed on film by police for seemingly existing. The media led us to believe the victim's appearance or background justified their lives being taken. This led to an eruption in protests in many major cities throughout the United States. Alright. This happened on the 4th of July weekend in New York City. There was a police officer executed by a brother, a black man. The city stopped. Alright? They were calling for the death penalty. No, he got killed by the police, so there wasn't no death penalty. But next, let me show you how they cooking the quote unquote black shooters and feeding into this fear campaign. Next. Now with all of the people that get killed, all right, that's the brother who killed the officer and got killed himself. Next.
Politically fueled cop hatred has taken another innocent officer's life.
Yes.
That's the title.
All right. So he was on Facebook. He said, police is F's. This ain't no gimmick. That's where your taxpayer money be going to pay off your own people being murdered. Niggas ain't taking no more, Mr. Officer. So on the 4th of July, he turned his hatred into an act, and he walked up on a mobile command post at 12:30 and pumped a bullet into a head of an officer. The assassination of a 48-year-old mother of 3 comes as gun murders of officers continue to rise nationwide, up 9% this year on top of last year's 53% increase. Last Thursday in San Antonio, police officer Miguel Moreno was deliberately shot in the head while investigating a car break-in. Next. Now, they get into this group of cop killers that they always bring up. Alexander Bond's anti-cop rhetoric echoes the Black Lives Matter inspired vitriol spewed by previous cop assassins over the last 3 years. Ishmael Brimsley, who assassinated NYPD officers Wayne Young Liu and Rafael Ramos on December 20th, 2014, had posted on Instagram, "I'm putting wings on pigs today. They're taking flight." Now, that man, Ishmael, whose mother used to be in the Nubians, right? Who, he was familiar with a lot of things in the community. He got on a bus from Baltimore and he went to New York City and he said, "I'm tired of the protests and all of that because Eric Gardner and Mike Brown have to be martyred." He said, "I don't believe in protesting. I gotta spill blood. Blood it was spilled." Because that's how they do it in the Bible. 242. So he went to New York and he martyred 2 of our brothers. Then in Dallas on July 7th, 2016, which equals a 7. So on 7/7/7, another man went and martyred 5 police officers for the brothers that they killed. Which ones was it that time? Trayvon? No, he martyred somebody. So,
that's Alton Sterling.
Alton Sterling, it was the Baton Rouge and Philando Castile. So when you're studying warfare, right? You have to understand what martyrdom is, right? When they go into war, when the Christians went into war, they would carry the flags of the saints because they spilled blood or got their blood shed in the name of the cause. They wasn't protesting with the flags. They wasn't crying, singing hymns and shit. They were going to spill blood in their name. So when they call on them later on in life on the altar, they answer because they fed them. They've been fed. Blood has spilled in their names. So they went from a victim to a martyr to a saint. So whenever somebody kills a police officer, they have to immediately bury that person, their name, and the fact that they spilled blood and martyred the people who we are familiar with. So Eric Garner has been martyred. Philando Castile has been martyred. Right? This is war. According to them, that's how they play their thing. Like, nah, you take one of us, we got to take more of you. So they bring these names up. Let me see it. Where?
This is where that was those two officers where the Blue Lives Matter legislation came about.
There's those two officers is where they started pushing that paperwork. Next one. I'm just showing you to show you something. Ishmael Brimsley. Remember, show of hands how many people know Dylan Roof. You know the name, right? You know the name of their killers. They don't let you know the name of the killers who killed for you. You understand? These names are not to be uttered. That's why they would say, when they would hang out with people or kill out or martyr our people, their names would have to be buried with them. And you're not to utter that person's name. Because that person, it's almost like, because those of us that understand the ancestral work, or understand the magic work, or understand, warfare of that kind, you invoke your ancestors' name. You call on them. Like Garvey said, look for me where? So they'll never name a hurricane the name of one of your ancestors. They won't name it Hurricane Toussaint. They won't name it Hurricane Garvey. They won't name it Hurricane Nat. Hurricane Nat. Begin these powers, because the power's in the word. So I'm putting wings on pigs today. Then I take one of ours. Let's take two of theirs. Gavin Long, who assassinated a sheriff deputy and two police officers in Baton Rouge on the 17th of 2016, declared in a suicide note, "I must bring the same destruction that bad cops continue to inflict upon my people, upon bad cops as well as good cops." Mika Johnson, a supporter of the new Black Panther Party and other black nationalist groups, said he wanted to kill white people and white cops in particular before assassinating 5 Dallas officers on 7/7/7. And the jury is still out as to if he even did that shit. You never seen him. You never heard from him. You never read anything from him. You just had them say, yo, we cornered this guy in the garage, sent a robot in that bitch and blew him up. But they invoke these martyrs that they invoke are that group of the black martyrs who they're going to use when they paint the conscious community, the black nationalist groups, the RBGs, and everybody as the homeland terrorists. These are the ones. Remember these names that I said. Ishmael Brimsley, Gavin Long, and Mika Johnson. With all of the 100 other white people who killed, you'll never hear their names. They're not focusing on them. They're calling these the Black Lives Matter terrorists. Okay? Next. I'm going to show you real quick how they're working on doing that too. Right? So, everybody that says, everybody that runs around and thinks that what's going on in America is not aboriginal, it's not crazy, right? Look at what's going on around the world. Deaths from police shootings last available year, 2013. There's an update to this. I got the 16 number. Look at this shit, 409. It jumped to like 600. Germany, 2012, 3. Great Britain, 0. Japan, 0. You mean to tell me there's not a war going on against our people? Huh? Next. Manifesto surfaces that Baton Rouge shooter Gavin Long may have written. Okay? Remember the Christopher Dahmer, his manifesto? That they were saying that he wrote, but you didn't know because you didn't hear anything from him, see anything from him, or anything else. They killed him and said that's what he did. The same way that they did the other brother. Remember the Christopher Dahmer, the police officer who went rogue? And you just had to read his tweets? But they were saying that was him? Yeah, him. Next. This is Mika Johnson, right? They've never did this in the history of any police shootings that I've ever seen. When they put out the picture of Mika Johnson, who was the suspected murderer of the 5 officers in Dallas, right? They put his picture next to Professor Britt. A picture that was on his Facebook page. It's almost akin to if they have one of those suspects, the Europeans who killed one of the police, and they threw a picture up with him with like Garth Brooks. He's just chilling with Garth Brooks. A musician, a celebrity who take pictures with anybody. That's who Professor Britt is. He's a musician. He's a celebrity. How are you going to put a picture of another man with a police killing suspect for the whole world to see? How are you going to affiliate him? But he has the red, black, and green on. Right. He has the colors that help white people identify these fucking colors and symbols because they don't know who we are yet. They're trying to figure us out. How many people walk around in their colors of their arcs on and people be like, white folk be like, who are these niggas? Different group of niggas. I have not encountered these niggas on BT yet. The tribe where they come from. You know what I'm saying? I must Google these niggas. So L.A. Reid shows up. So this was the first brother that they put up when the shooting took place. They threw his picture up on their Twitter feed, right? Because there was a rally taking place, Black Lives Matter rally, right? And they said, this is one of our suspects, please help us find him. So they're showing you, they could, any kind of, I don't know whoever, the tape that I heard of that shooting that took place, it wasn't no one gun. No. The shit sound like army guns going off at that rally. And it was a Black Lives Matter rally. But guess what happened the next day? They invited D-Ray to the White House. Okay. The dude with the blue vest. So how could you have a police shooting that killed 5 policemen, allegedly, right? And you invited the people to the lecture, to your White House the next day? They got clearance? That means that they had to be beyond a reasonable doubt. They knew that Black Lives Matter had nothing to do with the shooting. But how would you know that when you killed the suspect? Next, when everybody's Black Lives Matter, when they feel like saying it. That's what they killed them with. This is a drone. This is a land drone. First use of it on the soils of America against a citizen is when they killed Gavin Long, when they killed the brother in the parking lot. They blew his ass up with that. So into the age, that is your Terminator. That is RoboCop. That is AI. That's the beginning of that with this. So, next. There goes Gavin Long in Baton Rouge. Can you scroll down a little bit? I got his book. I met the brother at a lecture, he gave me his book. He called himself Cosmos. He was in the community. That's his YouTube channel. There you go. He was a Moor. Okay? He renounced his slave name and joined anti-black government group. That's their definition of what you're doing. Right? So they profiled you already. They got you with the RBG with Mika Long, because whatever he's guilty of, they throw a blanket over everybody. Oh, all you niggas are guilty then. Then they got you with the Moor. His name was Cosmos, Gavin Long. He was a cop killer who renounced his slave name and joined the anti-black government group. He used to be on YouTube. I got his book. It's a good read. All right? He was in the army. And so was Mika Long. These are veterans, family. So not only are they tagging the black nationalists, but they're tagging the black veterans. Okay? So this is all, anybody in law enforcement, anybody, you know how they build up profiles. This is all about psychological evaluation of suspects, and then that's how they put it on other people. Next. They're building up their cases. They're building up their profile. They're building up a homeland threat. They're seen depolicing in the wake of protests the political leaders seem to support. Law enforcement not only felt that their national political leaders publicly stood against them, but also that the politicians' words and actions signified the disrespect of law enforcement was acceptable in the aftermath of the Mika Brown shooting. The Michael Brown shooting. The assailant study, mindsets and behaviors, examines the men behind 50 cop killings last year. Most of the perps were simply looking to avoid arrest, but a full 28% actively hated police and desired to kill law enforcement. Several, including the killers in Dallas and Baton Rouge, were clearly inspired by the protests that began in Ferguson. Next. Nor does the role of movements like Black Lives Matter end there. A number of the killers the FBI found were more willing to use deadly force because they believed they were less likely to pay a heavy price for it in the new environment. And, in fact, the study notes that officers across the country report a withdrawal from proactive policing. U.S. police routinely travel to Israel to learn methods of brutality and repression. So if anybody studies what they've been doing in Israel with the Palestinians, and you see what's taking place where police are punching pregnant women, body slamming mamas and grandmamas, taking young girls at the pool and the lawn and wrestling them, all of that. When McKinney, Texas police officer David Eric Caselbolt brutally took down a teenager at a pool party in June, he was using a form of martial arts called Krav Maga, which he trained exclusively. These combat techniques were developed by the Israeli Defense Forces. This is a small reflection of a larger reality that exists in U.S. law enforcement, one that helps explain the brutality and militarization that now characterizes so many police forces. Since 9/11, cops have been traveling abroad to learn from one of the most repressive and dangerous state forces in the world today, the Israeli military and intelligence apparatus. The same people that didn't show up to the towers when they fell. Remember, it was Israelis that took off the day of work. At least 300 high-ranking U.S. sheriffs and police from all over the country, as well as FBI and U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents, have traveled to Israel to learn firsthand the most effective means of subduing populations. The purported reason is counterterrorism, but protest and crowd control methods are commonly discussed. Police are not learning from the Israeli criminal law sector that deals with Jewish residents. U.S. police are learning from Israel's military justice system, which controlled Palestinians through paramilitary and counterinsurgency tactics. Residents of Gaza and the West Banks live in what is essentially a giant prison camp where oppression and brutality from the IDF is a way of life. The use of excessive or deadly force for crowd control is rarely discussed. Question. Next. So that's what they're preparing for. That's what they're building up. Whoa, go back. Because the ADL. 3 organizations are responsible for sending U.S. cops to Israel for training. The Anti-Defamation League, ADL, remember that. The American Jewish Committee's project. You don't see Jews up in arms. They don't care. Next. Next. This is the report. The Office of Partner Engagement is unclassified. It's called the Assailant Study. Mindsets and Behaviors. You could go and Google that. The Assailant Study. Just to break down the psychological profile of that police officer that pulls you over because your stoplight ain't working. Or you know what I mean? The police officer who's watching over your children. The police officer who's running up and all. This is them. This is what they're studying. The psychological profile of us. Next. I can't get through all that. Next. It's just sharing what the article shared. The assailants, inspired by social or political reasons, believed that attacking police officers was their way to get justice for those who had been, in their view, unjustly killed by law enforcement. These assailants expressed that they were distrustful of the police due to previous personal interactions with law enforcement and what they heard and read in the media about other incidents involving law enforcement shootings, specifically in the Dallas, Texas, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana attacks. The assailants said that they were influenced by the Black Lives Matter movement and their belief that law enforcement was targeting black males. Next. Hold on. The assailants who had a hatred of law enforcement informed their friends or their family that they intended to kill a police officer or that they wanted to shoot it out with the police. Shut the hell up at those barbecues. Stop it, family. You niggas need to stop telling Nana that you ready to duke it out with the po-po. Because they gonna tell on you. Shit. Next, I'm telling you. Next. Now, they need boogeymen, right? They need targets. Because once they identify one target, they can come and get other targets, right? So the beginning of this war on crime is going to be the MS-13. It already started. Trump went to Long Island and launched the war, right?
Before that.
Yeah, even before that.
And his session kicked in the door.
And his Sessions kicked it in. MS-13 gang brings machetes, rape, scalping to Texas. Next, right? Be very aware of the propaganda, though.
And it's from right.
Because when you have groups like this, you also have groups that are under the control of these ICE agents, of these feds. They also wind up being the ones doing the dirty work for them.
Yep.
This is how shit like that. You know what I mean? So just be very mindful of that. And also be very mindful of the fact that America is creating these gangs and then deporting them back to Latin America and collapsing Latin America. They creating the Shatas and sending them to Jamaica to collapse Jamaica. They created the zones in Haiti and Florida and sent them back to Haiti to collapse Haiti. This is the shit that they do. So they learning a lot of this stuff in America. They created the Mexican gangs, sent them back to Mexico, and they collapsed Mexico. Through the deportee program, the same shit that Trump is talking about, build the wall, send them back to their homelands and whatnot. You know what I mean? Next. President-elect Donald Trump said he will move immediately to deport or imprison 2 million, maybe 3 million unauthorized immigrant criminals. What we're going to do is get the people that are criminal and have criminal records, gang members, drug dealers, he said on 60 Minutes. Like many of his proposals, this one sounds tough and straightforward, but makes no sense under scrutiny and is frightening to think about. Start with the fact that the target number is made up. There simply aren't as many criminal immigrants as he imagines. According to rough estimates by the Migration Policy Institute, the country's 11 million unauthorized immigrants, about 82,000 have criminal records. About 300,000 of those have felony convictions and are presumably the bad people Mr. Trump is talking about. If he deports those and only those, it will be a remarkable display of law enforcement discretion, since he said that there were lots of terrific people among the unauthorized who might be allowed to stay after the border is secured and after everything is normalized. So he's sending all of the criminals back into their countries. The same shit that Castro did, the reverse with that Marietta boat when he sent all of the criminals of Cuba into Miami and then the cocaine cowboys come. What Europe did when they flushed the toilets of all of their filth, the criminals, the white indentured servants, and they sent them over here as pilgrims, and what did they do? Collapse America. So, this is not new. All right? But the danger in all of that he's talking about is they're going to be rounding everybody up.
So that has to do with private prisons?
That has a lot to do with the private prisons. That's fulfillment of the beds and whatnot. You dig what I'm saying? That's a number that they could bank on the stock market. That's why stocks are so high. And once he gets rid of MS-13, it's the Bloods, it's the Crips, it's the folks, it's the GDs, then it's the RBG, then it's the Black Lives Matter, then it's the NOI, then it's the MSTA. It's all of that. Next. 21st century slum wars. In 1950, there were 86 cities in the world with a population of more than 1 million. Today, there are 400. By 2015, there will be at least 550. Cities indeed have absorbed nearly 2/3 of the global population explosion since 1950. They're currently growing by 1 million babies and migrants each week. Not white people, though. Cities will account for virtually all further world population growth, which is expected to peak about 10 billion in 2050. 95% of this final build out of humanity will occur in the urban areas of developing countries, those whose populations will double to nearly 4 billion over the next generation. Now, how have Homo sapiens managed to achieve a highly technological, seemingly advanced civilization while producing the horrors described by Mike Davis in Planet of Slums? Next. Slum fights. This is a different article. The Pentagon plans for a new 100 years war. Because you got to remember, I showed you earlier, you're dealing with people with a mortality rate that's rising, with a negative birth rate. But in undeveloped or other countries, the birth rate is exploding. The cities are building up. You understand? That's something that goes against their population agenda. So, Dwayne Shadow doesn't mince words. The cities are the problem, he says. A retired Marine Infantry Lieutenant Colonel who worked on urban warfare issues at the Pentagon in the late 90s, he now serves as director of the Joint Urban Operations Office at the U.S. Joint Forces Command. He sees the war in the streets of Iraq cities as the prototypes for tomorrow's battle space. This is the next fight, he warns. The future of warfare is what we see now. He isn't alone. We think urban is the future, said James Lassell, a retired colonel who now heads the Office of Science and Technology at the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory. Everything worth fighting for is in the urban environment. And Wayne Michael Hall, a retired Army Brigadier General and a senior intelligence advisor in Shadow's operation, has a similar assessment. We will be fighting in urban terrain for the next 100 years. Last month in a hotel nestle bed behind a medical complex in Washington, D.C., Shadow, Laswell, and Hall, along with Pentagon power brokers, active duty and retired U.S. military personnel, foreign coalition partners, representative of big and small defense contractors, and academics who support their work, gathered for a joint Urban Operations 2007 conference. Some have served in Iraq, Afghanistan. They're all involved in designing strategic tactics and concepts of creating this. So the world's most dangerous cities already is in Latin America. The top 5 are Latin America: El Salvador, Mexico, Honduras, Brazil, Guatemala. Then it's South Africa. Then it's United States. So they're talking about building a wall. They're talking about sending the people back. But look at what's already been look at what's been created in these countries. But unbeknownst to us, these governments will collapse due to the drug trade that America plays their hand in. Next. So for people that's watching Narcos and all of that stuff on Netflix, you understand how some of that goes. But what Narcos is not showing you, and why the Escobar estate is suing them, is because they're not showing you how the CIA had a hand in that shit.
That's American Made. It came out yesterday.
American Made shows that with Tom Cruise. They're trying to clean up their story that they played a part in destabilizing all of these governments that had the capability of becoming sovereign, like the Caribbean, that just got destroyed by these hurricanes and whatnot, who have the option of becoming their own sovereign states or sovereign powers. They're like, nah, we're going to destabilize that shit with that cocaine. Cocaine is grown primarily in South America and trafficked to the world's biggest market, the United States, via Central America and the Caribbean. The land routes originate mainly in Colombia and pass through the small nations of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala before traversing Mexico. That's all of the top murder capitals. Not in Latin America, they said the world. And they got wars popping up in the world. They came in the top 5. It is little wonder then that Latin America remains the world's most violent region not at war. According to data from the Igarape Institute, a Brazilian think tank, 43 of the 50 most murderous cities in the world last year, and 8 of the top 10 countries are in Latin America and the Caribbean. War zones, where numbers are very hard to verify, are excluded. Conflicts between gangs, corruption, and weak public institutions all contribute to the high levels of violence across the region. What do you think people will be willing to do not to get deported? They don't want to go back there. What do you think that my guy picking peaches and whatnot and cutting lawns will be willing to do to not cut lawns? Will he go and fight in North Korea? Huh? Will he go and fight niggas in North Carolina? Can Trump militarize and deputize these immigrants to fight for him? To make America great again? Because they don't want to go back to the hellhole. Next. Always understand that one of their biggest game is the bluff game. Okay? Alright, next. Let's breeze through this. The middle of the list is dominated by Brazil, the world's second biggest cocaine consumer. Is home to half of all the cities in a ranking that mostly reflects its large population. Once again, mostly Aboriginal, African, Indigenous ancestors. We're supposed to be going over there as groups. Okay? Not for the Peace Challenge either. Hello. We should be going over there to teach our brothers and sisters about who they are and to see if we can do some industrious works with them. Because they're going through their own form of oppression through the Portuguese. You know what I'm saying? Next. This is what they don't want to talk about. Alright? Can you scroll that up a little bit? The FBI's growing concern with the cult of holy death. Santa Muerte. I always say black magic matters. That's my hashtag. Black magic matters. Because I've identified the fact that, you know, people are using their ancestors to do some very powerful things.
Yes.
Huh?
Getting busy.
They get busy. Agents within the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation have publicly raised serious concerns about the growing Latin American cult of Holy Death, or Santa Muerte, and openly questioned whether recent grisly beheadings and lynchings of hundreds of people by Mexican cartels may have been part of a ritualistic offerings to dark spiritualistic forces and not simply a message to rival gangs. Warning, the following contains graphic descriptions and images that may be disturbing to some readers. Put on your glasses if you don't want to see it. Next.
Solar glasses.
Santa Muerte ideology developed in Mexico and Argentina for approximately a half century and has recently spread into the United States and Central America. The shadowy cult's popularity has increased with its ties to illicit narcotic trafficking in Mexico in the late 80s and 90s. As a saint of last resort, Santa Muerte, which is murder, always has had a following amongst those who live in extreme circumstances, as one expert explains. The Santa Muerte cult could be best described as a set of ritual practices offered on behalf of a supernatural personification of death. She is comparable in theology to supernatural beings or archangels. While not a fully developed or official religion, Santa Muerte has self-proclaimed priests, temples, and shrines. And could... Go to the next slide. While not a fully developed or official, Mexican authorities arrested one high priest, Romo Gulian, on kidnapping charges in December 2010. Individuals in his gang posed as members of the Los Zetas cartel. In 2009, he called for a holy war against the Catholic Church. During that same year, the Mexican army destroyed numerous Santa Muerte shrines. Members of the Catholic Church, the FBI, and the Mexican army view the growth of the cult as a dangerous development, and the Vatican has recently openly condemned the cult, calling it blasphemous. The cult has waged an actual war of violence against the Catholic Church and the Mexican government, not just an ideological one. So there's holy war in Mexico going on. All right? Build the wall. Next. For U.S. law enforcement agents such as the FBI, criminalize the dark variant of Santa Muerte worship raises many concerns. Of greatest concern, the inspired and ritualistic killings associated with this cult could cross the border and take place in the U.S. The cult appears to have more European than Aztecan origins, with some individuals describing Santa Muerte as a New Age Grim Reaper type goddess, a bad girl, bad Riri, counterpart to the Virgin of Guadalupe. Next. Evidence of the popular outgrowth and further evidence of popularity of the cult of Holy Death is the popular occult book publisher IXAXAAR. It publishes books such as the Liber Folksair or the Book of the Left-Handed Reaper, which sells on eBay for thousands of dollars. Next. Within a private aspect of the cult, special altars are arranged in honor of Senor La Muerte. Special totems and offerings are made at the altar, like roasted pork ribs, cigars, wine. Black and red candles are arranged in triangles around it. Everything that was presented must be ritualistically discarded after a few days by discarding them in a hollow of a tree or buried at a cemetery. Rites are also carried out at graves where the dark currents are supposedly more effective. Next. All right. Feast days held in Argentina devoted to this deity are held at midnight until the sun comes up. The music never stops at these feasts, and it is a grand orgy of carnal pleasures, food, ceremonious deeds, and interactions. After the feasting, the adepts perform the rituals at home. The culto provido was one of the two cults that practiced black magic. The others was more religious-based and seen as fake. Within the private... Alright, next. Black magic matters. Okay? They serious about this shit. Next. The criminal insurgencies waged by the cartels and gangs centered on a strategy of securing non-governmental interference with their illicit narcotics and other criminal economic activities have received much attention and debate. For let's have focus on some of the darker spiritualistic part of the drug wars. Such a form of imminent mortality faces adherents makes the worship of Santa Muerte spiritually dark. The death of someone's enemies, protection from harm, or at least hope for a quick and glorious death, cultivation of a dangerous reputation, and ability to enjoy the benefits of fabulous riches, including the company of beautiful women, become paramount. With the stakes so high, the sacrifices and offerings to Santa Muerte have become primeval and barbaric. Rather than place of food-bearing tobacco in some instances, the heads and bodies of victims, and presumably their souls, have served as offerings to invoke powerful petitions of intervention.
For the P. So they
All right? In Jamaica, you find similar gangs. They follow the opium man. In Haiti, you find similar gangs. They follow the voodoo.
Life's cartel.
In Jamaica, you have Vibes Cartel and all of them following similar things, similar rights. The Dominican drug gangs uptown in New York. People said there was a story of somebody who went and robbed them and tied them up, went into the closet. That's where the shrine was, all of the blood on the wall. They untied them and gave them their coat back. Okay? Black magic matters. You find this all in the Caribbean, all in Latin America. You find it in the hoods in America. All right? There's some gangs out here that do hoodoo and voodoo. They mama protect them.
Cash money.
You got Cash Money, who is known to practice forms of black magic in New Orleans. Okay? So this is something that they don't want you to know about. This is something that they damn sure don't want to talk about, because this is something that they cannot necessarily fight or control. Right? Next. Next. The many-faced God. There is only one God, and his name is Death. And there was only one thing we say to death, not today. The many-faced God, ultimately known as the God of Death, is a deity worshipped by the mysterious cult of assassins known as the Faceless Men, who are headquartered in the free city of Bravos, and they believe that through their assassinations they do his work. Where's this from? Game of Thrones. All right? The Faceless Men worship Death, whom they believe is the only God. The cult is actually a syncretic religion. Its followers believe that Death is unknowingly worshipped by devotees of all religions in the world, simply under different names. Every religion either has a God of death in polytheistic faith, or has a God with dominion over death in monotheistic faiths. The Faceless Men believe that all of these gods are simply different aspects or faces through which Death has revealed himself to humanity. Hence, they formally refer to their deity as the many-faced God. Let that marinate. All right? Next. So, with that, we will go into what is known today as the deaf culture. Hip-hop, who's celebrating its 44th year this year. Okay? But I would love to go further in, but we're going to have to pause it on this right here before we continue because we have to take a break and my brother Sabir has to come up and do his presentation. You understand? But we're going to follow up and we're going to talk more about the culture. We're going to follow up more about what we were building on with this black magic and why it matters and why there's a fear of it and why it's tied into the Blackamoor Messiahs and the energy that we possess. Okay? Like I said in that whole thing about the many-faced God. You know, one thing that we could all be sure of is that we will see death one day. It's been taught through religion to be scared of it and to fear it, and they made it a negative, but it's part of life. It's part of creation. You dig what I'm saying? And if we are not afraid of it, we will find that there's a power that is in it that has invaded us because we're running around in fear. So we're afraid to live because we're afraid to die. But there's people around the world that are not afraid to die and they're not afraid to live. And these are the people that are actually living. Right? So with that being said, I want to give thanks to everybody for the attention that you have given me and your undivided attention. Give yourselves a hand and thank you. We have some DVDs out there. We have some CDs with music and also clothing and stuff of that nature. Please come and support us. Thank you. Peace.
Peace. Still on live too, y'all.
Huh? Okay.
Rich, I want to make yours fresh, so I'm making.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, man.
Hey, excuse me,
Peace to the
everyone.
fam.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to start the roast beer at 3:45.
All right.